Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 10 of the Disgruntled Geeks podcast, the most honest, critical, and sometimes cynical podcast you will ever hear.
We've done it. We're in double digits.
We actually have succeeded in making it to the double digits. That is amazing.
Yeah, this is a huge milestone for us.
Ben, I didn't think you'd be able to put up with me for, 3 episodes.
Oh, well, I figured you wouldn't put up with me after one.
Well, we've made it, so now the next big milestone is we got to make it to 100.
Yeah,
we got to do it 9 more times.
Yeah, about 90 more episodes. Nobody cares about double digits. We got to get to triple now.
Exactly. Double digits are rookie numbers.
Well, I think we can have a mild celebration at 50 because that's the halfway point.
Ah, there you go.
So
yeah.
We can just be like, we're halfway there. Rolling down towards mediocrity.
So for those that are joining us for the first time, or maybe you've forgotten, I am one of your hosts, Ronnie. And
I wouldn't blame you for forgetting.
All right. And this lovely gentleman to the side of me is the other host, Ben.
We're like 3 minutes in and you're already lying to the people.
Ah,
Not lovely at all. Shame on you.
I got to butter you up for the episode.
Ew.
That's how I keep you around.
Oh, I see.
Because if I don't give you compliments every once in a while, I'm afraid you're just going to walk out like everybody else in my life.
Is that how you... Oh, wow. There's some deep-seated issues there.
Right. Oh, man. Guys, it has been a crazy week with the Disgruntled Geeks. If you have not noticed, we are now doing a daily episode as well as a weekly. For those that don't know, our daily episode is more just me rambling about how much I hate random topics.
That's mostly because you have too many topics in your brain and you got to get them out there before your head explodes.
Exactly. So it's just like 15 to 30 minute little bite-sized chunks. They're perfect for a ride to work, which is convenient because I'm actually...
Or a toilet break.
Yeah, or a toilet break, which is convenient because I'm actually recording those while I drive to work.
Sure, there you go.
Took a page out of Mark Rosewater's book there.
Just don't be swearing at traffic while you're recording.
Oh yeah, well there was that one time, and
that's what I'm referring to. don't do that unless you want to have like a mature audiences only. Just remember, you only get one F-bomb.
One F-bomb per PG-13.
Per 10 episodes.
Per 10 episodes, yes.
Yeah.
We've actually made it 10 without one, so there you go. That's like round of applause. But yeah, guys, we're really excited about some of the things we've got coming up. We actually also did our first kind of gameplay session on the Twitch stream.
We got lost in the forest.
Oh yeah, it was really fun. I nearly died to cannibals multiple times.
And then you lived long enough to become the cannibal.
Yep, lived long enough to become the cannibal. So you can check that out on Twitch. Eventually I'm going to have it over to YouTube, but I'm not making any promises on when that's going to be.
Yeah, those things usually take a while to upload for, like, actual gameplay, I think.
Right, because it's like 3 hours.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
So soon, TM, you'll be able to see that over on YouTube. But let's go right into this. Like, Ben, what have you been up to this week?
This week, I mean, right now, if you see me looking up, it's because there's a thunderstorm going on, and my power can flicker when it's going. So, we'll see how long I'm here.
Yeah.
We gotta get the episode done before I lose it.
I think you said it kind of adds some suspense to the episode.
Yeah. This is like, can we do an episode before I'm lost from the call?
Yeah, and so those of you that are listening on the podcast, we actually record these live on Twitch.
Yeah.
So there's like this, if anything goes wrong, like it goes in.
At any given time, Ronnie just may have to like do a one-man show for a few minutes.
Well, I've been getting practice.
Yeah. So it'd be good. But as far as actually this week, I've done a bit more forest, single player. Just continuing to go rabbit hunting, and then I'm eventually going to be brave enough to go into the caves for exploring.
Right.
Because I hear that's how you progress in this game.
Right. Which I don't even want to talk about what are in the caves. Like I'm still... mentally and emotionally scarred by that.
I sent you down one on purpose.
Oh, it was crazy. Again, I don't want to ever take for granted that some of you may be listening to this episode as our first episode, and you might not know what the forest is. What the forest is, it's kind of a survival game in the vein of 7 Days to Die, Minecraft, like those things. But you're basically on a peninsula. Is that right? Yeah, and you've and there's cannibals that are trying to kill you, and you're basically doing the Minecraft thing, just cutting stuff down, building stuff, and
Well, you have to find your son. That's the plot when you start out. Is your boy was taken by cannibals, so you're going to go find him by cutting down trees and ruining their environment.
right, right. Well, while we're kind of just on the subject of it, like, what do you really feel? Because I'm starting to really get addicted to it myself with the forest.
Okay.
What do you feel is really the appeal? Because it feels like there's a lot more to hook people in with that game than your typical survival game.
I think it is. It's definitely probably the most hostile survival game I've played, and that's I've played a few of them. Like the cannibals feel like we understand what they are. They're human, of course, but they feel so alien.
Right.
And it's weird that they kind of balance that duality sort of perfectly with just how they act, and I mean, of course, the horrible things they create really kind of just hurts your brain.
Well, one of the things that I found fascinating about the cannibals is how realistic the AI is. Like, you remember,
Yeah.
I ran into like 4 cannibals at one point
Exactly.
during our multiplayer, and while 2 of them were kind of like charging at me and then backing off, there was another one who was trying to go back around me and actually flank me. Like,
Yep.
I was like, that's some good AI design for an independent game.
That's not bad. I think the other thing is just sort of the grit that the game has, because everything has a more realistic, I mean, as realistic as you get in video games, feel to it, where the impact of cutting a tree is more felt than it is in Minecraft.
Right.
And the usage of the local wildlife as a resource is also more felt, because it's like when I go rabbit hunting, it's like I killed a rabbit, I'm not going to pick him up and then like rabbit skins in my inventory. It's like, no, you cut the skin off the sucker and you have his dead little body that you cook and have to eat. And
Which
really
is
take
about
that
the
sort of
most
seriously.
metal thing that I've ever heard on this podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you pick up his dead little carcass and just
I mean, it's what it is. It's
Right.
getting around it.
Right. Yeah, it's a phenomenal game. If you're out there and you're listening and you want to try out a different kind of survival game, The Forest is definitely the one I would recommend at this point.
I think it's as close to saying as like it has a horror element to it, with just how off the cannibals are and how unsettling their sort of cave homes are.
Right.
So I think like it's as close as you get as far as just unsettling in playing a survival game.
Well, you're going to have to keep us updated if you get down deep into the mines before we do on our multiplayer streams. So let us know what that turns out to be.
And then I play a little bit of Monster Hunter because we had the Final Fantasy crossover event added.
Oh, yeah. What crossover with which Final Fantasy?
14.
14, the MMO.
Because the MMO is also getting a Monster Hunter thing where they have a raid boss fight that is fighting a Rathalos.
Okay.
And we got the Behemoth as a monster to hunt.
Oh, that's actually really awesome. Like, the Behemoth is one of my favorite Final Fantasy monsters. So.
Yeah, and he is definitely an endgame boss. He actually has MMO fight elements to it because he has aggro as a mechanic. It's called enmity in the game, but it's just essentially he has an aggro table. So you get like your lance and gun lance players should probably get in the way of him. He has spells that you can interrupt. Like I love it, the fact that like people always mispronounce this, but there's the Charybdis spell where he summons like a tornado, and
Right.
It's just funny listening to people try to pronounce that like they never took Latin or mythology in school.
I don't think most people did.
No, I mean, I'm a nerd, so of course I did. But he has a mechanic too where he drops comets on the ground that leave like, it's kind of like the World of Warcraft Saffron fight,
Right.
where something will get left and then he's going to drop a big meteor. It's like ecliptic meteor, I think it's called, and you have to be behind a comet or it just one shots you. And when I say that, I don't just mean if you're in the area not doing anything and one shots you. I mean if you are anywhere on the map, even in the basic camp, and you're not behind a comet, it kills you, just straight out.
Right.
No, nothing else will save you, and that's just a foreign concept in Monster Hunter.
But,
So,
by the way, just let me say this real quick. If you hear any weird noises, that is actually the storm that is going on behind us. I heard it in my own headset, and I'm like, wait, what is that? Like, is my stomach growling? But
no, we are recording in the middle of a dangerous thunderstorm. We could just die at any minute.
That's how dedicated we are to you.
Yeah, we're dedicated. This is like a form of narcissism. People want to hear our opinions.
At least that's what it seems to be. I don't know where you guys are coming from, but
We
thanks.
appreciate all of you for putting up with us.
But
I digress.
so real quickly, we were talking last week about I needed to finish Orange Is the New Black season 6 before I gave a final judgment.
Right, yeah.
And my final judgment is it was better than season 5.
Okay.
But that's about all I can say good about it.
So is it more than
Well, I think it's just a matter of like it was still a good season, but whenever you had 4 really, really good seasons, and then all of a sudden you kind of get like a below average one with a barely above average season, you still feel like there's just more that could have been done. And again, like I said last week, I don't want to go into spoilers on any of it, but I will say that like Tasty, her storyline is really good, which her storyline this season involved, spoilers for season 5 here, but involved the death of Piscatella, and it's kind of being pinned on her this season. And it was really interesting to see the actress kind of take on a more serious role this season because she's always been one of the funny characters.
Yeah.
And that was probably the best storyline. Like everything else, it was really hard to care about. I will say that this season definitely was the beginning of a new chapter for Orange Is the New Black.
Okay.
And that kind of gives me hope that maybe season 7 they can get back on track.
Yeah, it just sounds like they need to hit their stride again.
Right. So and I'm going to go ahead and warn you, there's like a sneeze building up, so everybody just get ready.
He's got his hand over the mute button.
Right. So if I stop talking mid-sentence, you know why.
Yep.
But I watched another show that actually reinvented itself in this current season.
Okay.
And I think it actually did it the correct way and was a really above average season for the show.
All right.
And that was Shameless. And for those that don't know what Shameless is, basically it's about a family who has...
right. Yeah, now I remember.
Yeah, a drug and alcohol addicted father who's kind of just a scumbag father who the oldest daughter kind of raised all the other kids, and there's like 6 or 7 of them. But yeah, they did some new things. I watched the entire season this week, along with finishing Orange Is the New Black, and it was definitely just a good, clean kind of reset button on the show for a lot of the characters.
Sure.
So not to go like really in depth because again I'd like to avoid spoilers with my reviews. But you really you had the dad kind of reinvent himself through the majority of the season, and I won't say that that's necessarily going to be permanent because by the end of the season, some of the same habits started coming back. But it was interesting to kind of see Frank start actually trying to be a productive person in life.
Yeah, putting in effort.
Yeah, and, that's one of those things where. When you have a character that we've watched for 7 years, they need to have those kind of evolutions. And I think they really did it right because Frank was still Frank, but you could see where he was really trying. And that was an interesting take on the character. But I would rank Shameless season 8 is probably my favorite season of the show.
Cool.
Which for a show that's had 8 seasons, it's hard in the 8th season to make a season that's actually that good.
Yeah.
So, but let's go ahead. Let's get into what our topic is this week.
Okay.
There was a big thing that happened here recently, wasn't there?
Yeah.
What was it? What
Going
was
to
that?
a store championship.
Oh yeah. For X-Wing, right?
Yes, for X-Wing. We had our store championship, the last tournament of first edition X-Wing.
Right.
So it's kind of the big send-off for that edition.
Right. And I know we've kind of explained what X-Wing is before, but again, I don't want to take for granted that anybody's listening to the podcast for the first time. So, Ben, just kind of a Spark Notes version. What exactly is X-Wing?
Okay, so X-Wing is Fantasy Flight Games' sort of flagship Star Wars miniature game where you and another person build up a squad of your favorite Star Wars starfighters and engage in dogfights to try to kill each other. And the cool thing about this that sets it apart from other miniatures is it requires very little setup. Like, you don't need any fancy terrain. You just need a table that can hold like cardboard obstacles. You don't have to paint the models or assemble them. They come out of the box ready to go. The paint job is really detailed. Like, these models look really good and do a good job of capturing the look of all the iconic ships and some that you don't even know, but are still cool regardless. And it's just very simple to pick up and play. And that's just very appealing if you've been looking to sort of get into miniatures games.
Right.
But the buy-in price is just very daunting. And this is the perfect game to sort of jump in then.
Yeah, it's kind of low barrier of entry. And that's like, I do not play X-Wing regularly. I've played several games with Ben and other people at our local game shop. But I've never actually got into the game. But I can still, like, even the rules, it's pretty low barrier to entry. It's not a super complex game. So if you're a Star Wars fan, like, it should be pretty easy to get into.
Fantasy Flight sort of figured out that people, when they want to play miniatures games, at least some people do, they'd rather have symbols on dice that they can correlate to meaning something. Like, the little explosion means a hit, and then the little squiggly around the thing means a block, rather than rolling traditional six-sided and looking up on a chart what their result means and taking a more.
Is that what Warhammer does?
Yes.
Oh wow! Yeah. I didn't even know that. Like, that sounds.
I mean. And when I say, symbols on the dice, that's not a Fantasy Flight exclusive thing. You know what other game does that? Blood Bowl, a GW game.
Right. You think they'd know better.
Well, I mean, they still use the six-sided in sort of like doing other checks, but you don't have to look up on a chart what it is. I mean, there's charts for things like determining casualty, but nothing that really is going to slow down the game. Because when a player gets knocked down Blood Bowl, that's going to slow down the game regardless.
Right.
Because you got to figure out so many other things. But as far as actual gameplay, no, it's like, oh, I know what that means immediately.
Right.
6 is a success, 1 is a failure. Easy.
Right. And one of the things you mentioned too is like just the miniatures being well painted. Like, they're really good for collectibles.
Yes.
If you bought one or bought some and played the game and didn't like it, well, it doesn't matter. You got these awesome little figures.
Yeah. Like, there's models that I have effectively retired, and I can put them up on my shelf, and they look cool.
Yeah, they're absolutely fantastic. They're high quality. I think even beyond like the gameplay aspect, like they're worth their weight just in collectibleness. So,
I mean, if I ever have to give up this game for any reason, I'm gonna get my collection and put it in a curio cabinet and just have it be on display because everything just looks good.
Right. So tell us how the store championship went this weekend.
All right, so I went. We usually only get about either 4 or 6 people for our regular tournaments. We got 11 people this time.
Which is insane considering, they're about to make a new version of X-Wing.
I think a lot of people are just ready to kind of send 1.0 off.
Right.
Like, this is kind of their last chance to get a 1.0 store championship in. But I played, even though I was TO also, I double-checked, made sure that was cool with everybody. We had a couple other people that would know rules that could take care of stuff if I was busy. I got 5th. I went 2-2. Which is okay out of 11 people. It's not. Is it ideal? Of course not. But I chalk it up to a few things. One, I mean, I've been playing Legion pretty much since we started this show, and have not really touched X-Wing up until the tournament.
So you got a little bit of rust going.
I had a lot of rust. 2, I didn't know what I was going to fly and really didn't have much thought into it, so I just picked a list and just went with it. So it's like, if I knew the list better, I probably could have flown it better, but I flew it to the best of what my ability was, considering how long it's been since I played X-Wing. And 3, there was just a couple of times where I made some really stupid decisions, like a couple of really bad ones stick out, and then just, I think there's at least 1 or 2 dice rolls where it's like, if I made those, then it would have changed the game, but I whiffed.
Right. So I had a little bit of variance working against you there, too.
A little, but I mean, I'm used to top decking mana when I need something in Magic, so...
Right.
Not so bad. And it didn't keep happening every game. It's just like the 1 or 2 times it happens. That's a very rude thing to do. I'm sorry. 2 times, it was heartbreaking. But,
right.
What can you do?
But it sounds like overall it was a successful and fun event.
Yeah, I had a great time because what I did was I went into the event going, I began flying X-Wing, flying Darth Vader. That's how I ended it. I flew Darth Vader in my list.
Right. And can we kind of, step back? Not necessarily, this doesn't just pertain to X-Wing, but let's kind of step back there for a second. At the end of the day, with any miniature hobby, board, card game, anything that you're really playing, like, isn't that what it's about at the end of the day?
Yeah,
Even if you're going to the competitive scene, like at the end of the day, yeah, you want to win, but at the same time, it's like you got to go in with the right mentality of like, let me just have fun while I'm doing this too.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, if you can say that, then you're basically in the right game. Because you shouldn't be in a game where you're only going to have fun if you win.
right. And you're going to hear me complain about everything. Obviously, we're the disgruntled geeks, but at the end of the day, it's like I complain about a lot of the stuff because I actually enjoy the stuff. I actually like it, and I do have fun with it. And if you're not having fun with any of your games, you might want to step back and look at why you're doing it.
Yeah, I'd say so. But yeah, X-Wing and even Legion to a degree, I mean, to the same degree, is I play those games and I have fun regardless. There's just different things about them that I enjoy. That like X-Wing can do this when Legion can't, and vice versa.
Right, right. So there was
But
some
the actual big event.
the big event was GenCon.
Oh yeah, that is a pretty big event.
Was that last weekend?
I believe so. The Googles will tell me.
Well,
it was pretty recent.
Right. It was very, very recent. I know because that is GenCon is actually the birthplace of Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, it actually today was the last day of GenCon.
Oh, today was the last day. Okay.
Yeah,
so August the 5th.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, for everyone who is listening out in future world, that would be August the 5th.
By the time you listen to it.
Right. But yeah, GenCon's always a big event. Like I said, it was the birthplace of Magic. You got a lot of tabletop and board game announcements that happen, and I heard Fantasy Flight had some things to say.
Oh yeah, that came out with the big announcements. This was like their E3, just announcements, especially in the Star Wars. If there was any other announcement Fantasy Flight made, forget it. I didn't hear about it.
Right.
I only hear about their Star Wars stuff.
And this is just as fresh to me as it is to you, audience. I did not look at any of these announcements, so I'm really excited to hear this.
Okay, so I'm going to hit you what I think is the biggest sort of announcement for Star Wars, or for X-Wing and Legion. There was an announcement for Armada, but that's not really my game. So the big announcement for Legion and X-Wing. Clone Wars. They're doing it. We're getting the Republic and Separatist factions for X-Wing and Legion.
Now, is this a good thing or a bad thing?
So, in my opinion, which is what you're here for, clearly, for Legion, it's a fantastic thing. Couldn't be happier with it. For X-Wing, it's a to me.
Right.
And my reasons for that, not just because like I don't like the movies, I don't particularly care for them, but I'm not gonna tell you you're wrong if you like them. Movie bias aside, my main thing with it in X-Wing is I don't associate many ships with those movies that aren't on the Armada scale.
Right.
Like.
Which let me say this real quick. If you do like the prequel movies, I will say that you're wrong for liking them. But yes, I just didn't like the design of most of the prequel ships. Anyways, like
there were some that were okay. I think like the one that keeps getting brought up is the Naboo Starfighter.
Right.
Which is fine because a lot of people made custom miniatures for that before this announcement. Like you would see it on our X-Wing every day on Reddit. Oh, look what I made! Then that's cool.
Right. Which most of
those. I don't think there's much.
Well, I think the designs are actually better than the daggum bombers from The Last Jedi, and you already have that. So
you're not wrong about that. Yeah, I think about any prequel ship looks better than that piece of garbage.
Right. So real quick on Legion, like why does it excite you for Legion? Like, what are you looking forward to out of that?
Well, by contrast, when I don't associate Clone Wars with starships, I associate it with ground battles and infantry units. Right. And Clone Wars had that in spades because you have your different clone units that you'll have much more exciting paint schemes than regular stormtroopers. You've got the different droid types that all look different, apart from just the stock useless battle droids. Like having the droidicas as miniatures, that's cool.
Right.
I'm all for that. Also, like using commanders, all those characters that showed up in the Clone Wars, you can use them as either commanders or operatives, and that's giving another great thing for miniatures. And it adds more factions, so that you're not just doing Rebels, Empire, Rebels, Empire, Rebels, Empire, and that's going to really add variety to the game. And especially when it's like, what would happen if you had the army of the Republic from before fight against the Galactic Empire, and other nonsense as that.
Right. Now, are they going to fit into the factions that are currently in the game?
No, they're their own separate factions.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So there's going to be 4, with Rebels, Empire, Republic, and Separatists.
Okay, so you could have like Separatists and Empire fight each other, and Rebels and Republic fight each other.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. That's pretty exciting, actually.
Yeah, that's why I think it's a fantastic option for Legion, and it's what I was actually even kind of, I don't know if you call it rallying, because I never put much effort into the idea, but I was of the opinion that Legion should have been a Clone Wars game from the get-go, just because Clone Wars was much more ground battle focused from the movies and the TV show.
Oh, very much so.
So it's like, it just seems perfect for it, but they went with Civil War first, which is fine. It's not a bad era of Star Wars, just it seems limited, but I'm glad they are adding Clone Wars to it.
So what do you think the implication though of adding new factions? Do you think it's going to eventually get to Warhammer level where there's just a ton of factions, or do you think they're going to kind of rein it in and keep it limited like they did with X-Wing?
Well, I tell you, there's one moment where I think they will jump the shark with Legion, and that's when we get the Gungan army as a option.
Oh no, there's nobody can think that's a good idea. Like nobody in the world could think that's a good idea.
No, please no. I don't think anyone wants that. I hate to say it, but X-Wing is kind of already approaching the Warhammer thing with the fact that they're adding the prequel factions, because they split the Resistance and the First Order away, and now they're their own separate factions.
Okay.
So you've got Rebels, Empire, Scum, First Order, Resistance, Republic, Separatists. 7 different factions in X-Wing.
Okay. See, I was still stuck back in the 3 factions of X-Wing.
No, yeah, I didn't think I told you that they had decided to split Resistance and First Order. So that's going to be tricky, because the 3 factions already had some kind of trouble with finding their identity. How they do that with 7, I'm not sure.
Right.
But what I will say is, it's kind of a money saver, because it's encouraging the idea of being more loyal to certain teams. Like, it builds up kind of like team loyalty.
Right.
So I don't have to go out and buy prequel stuff if I don't want to. They've sworn on everything you could swear on. They're no longer going to do the thing where, oh, do you want this great upgrade card? Well, it's in the Jar Jar expansion. Go buy that. So with them not doing that, then it's much more feasible to just say, I am a pure Empire player. I'm only going to play Empire, therefore I only have to buy Empire.
Right. Yeah, and I'm sorry, guys, to keep sneezing. I'm sure you either hear pauses or sneezes in the background. But
Ronnie is allergic to me waffling on about X-Wing.
I'm allergic to something right now, and I think it's work. And I've been getting way too much of that lately. But yeah, so that's like always my biggest concern is just the number of factions in any miniatures game.
It can get much. It can be a bit much.
Yeah, I've seen like Game Workshop go way overboard with it.
I couldn't tell you how many 40K has, or Age of Sigmar, or any of the other stuff.
Right.
But I think even then it's more practical. They're doing that because I think encouraging 40K is like, look, if you want to play Necrons, just play Necrons.
Right. Yeah, they want you to lock down to a faction almost.
Yeah, because they know how to package them that you're going to have to buy 50 boxes of something anyway.
Right. Spend, $2,000 just to build one army. No big deal.
It was $1,500. Thank you.
Yeah.
No. I'm kidding. 40K players, I love you, really.
Yeah, he does. But so besides that, we've got prequel stuff coming.
Yep.
What other announcements did they make?
So the other announcement is, this is kind of for Armada to enjoy. Vader's big Star Destroyer, the Executor?
Yes.
That is now a ship you can control in Armada.
Yeah, so for those that don't know what Armada is, real quick, can I do this side? Armada is kind of like X-Wing, except on the bigger scale.
Yes, with capital ships.
Right.
So if you ever wanted to pilot Star Destroyers, that's your game.
Right. But that's like a big deal though. Like
Oh yeah.
that's a figure I almost just want to buy.
Well, you want to know what the price tag of it is?
What's that?
$200.
Never mind.
I said the exact same thing because I looked at the pictures from the model at GenCon. It's gorgeous. As far as the size of it, so in X-Wing you have the epic ships that sit on two bases.
Yes.
And like you've seen my Raider, right? So you know how long that is.
Right.
That's as big as the Executor is.
Yeah, because you're talking like how long is that? Like 8 inches?
It's more than that. It's got to be
12
at least a foot or so.
Yeah. Okay. I'm bad at measurements, so ignore me.
Yeah.
So that's like a foot. That's like a.
Oh yeah, like it's on 2 bases for Armada. It has 6 firing arcs, as opposed to just the 4 of regular Star Destroyers. It's so big that for standard play, there's 2 versions of that are coming with it: the standard play one and like the Go Nuts version. Right. And like the standard version is gimped because it would just be so powerful.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's gross.
That's crazy.
Armada is very much more kind of. It has the kind of price tag you would expect to see of miniatures games, but at the same time, it's still got really nice looking miniatures. I've always said I wanted a Star Destroyer just to display it. I've played it once, and it's kind of fun, but I just don't get the joy that I get out of X-Wing. And I think the way I describe that is they're both very good at simulating what the player's role is. And in Armada, your role is the commander on the Star Destroyer, ordering squadrons to engage and annihilate all rebel forces. In X-Wing, you're the pilot in the cockpit, flying around at breakneck speeds, dodging asteroids and TIE fighter fire. And quite frankly, I know which one of those two I'd rather be.
Yeah. Which that's kind of the fun part about X-Wing is just the fast-paced nature of it anyways. For a miniatures game, like there's no miniature game that's truly fast-paced, but it's definitely fast-paced for a miniatures game.
It's about as fast-paced as you would expect a miniatures game to get.
Right. So were there any other announcements?
Oh, let me see. Well, we do have more Rebels stuff for Legion. Chewbacca is coming.
Oh.
So we can play as him. And he actually synergizes with Han Solo if he's your commander.
Now, why would that ever be?
I don't know. But I got very excited because I think this is probably what's going to get me to assemble my Rebel army is to do Han and Chewbacca as my commander operative. So here's the synergy that just really love thinking about it. Han Solo has a command card, which you play at the beginning of every turn. It kind of sets the strategy for your army that turn. Well, one of his command cards is choose your opponent must pick up their command card and choose another one from their hand. So, like, if there was one they were going to go into, like, this killing strategy if they just played this card, you can negate that. It's like the Legion's version of Counterspell. Well, you play that with Han. Chewbacca has a card that says you get one of Han Solo's cards from your discard pile, and you put it back in your hand. So you could do that twice a game.
Oh, wow.
Disrupt your opponent's strategies.
So that's like just 2 turns you kind of just shut down what they're doing.
Yeah. And that's like when they play their big 1-pip kill everything card, like Maximum Firepower with Veers or Implacable Darth Vader or Son of Skywalker. Like, where just units will die.
Right.
It's incredible.
Oh, that just sounds insane. But the thing is I think there should be a requirement for anybody that does play Chewie, and that you have to make the noise whenever you play him.
I think people will do that anyway.
Yes, exactly. I mean, why wouldn't you?
It's the unspoken rule. And they have to do that for more than Chewie because the Rebels are also getting Wookiee operatives. Wookiee commandos. So a little squadron of walking carpet.
Yeah, like Cousin It finally joined the the military.
They don't. Only one of them has a bowcaster though. The rest are all melee units.
Well, I'm not opposed to that. I would. I really feel like they're
really powerful.
Right. They probably should have just kept the bowcaster to Chewbacca anyways.
Yeah, maybe, but
considering he's like the iconic one.
Sure, but I think like people. The bowcasters become not just Chewbacca's, but like the sort of go-to Wookiee weapon, because the other ones do have kind of like a short sword that they wield around, and it's like got a curved blade, and it looks pretty neat. But when people think Wookiee weaponry, bowcaster's their go-to. So 1, I think, is the right number for not just iconic purposes, but also for versatility of the unit, because then it has some range capability. Right. So that they're not just left in the middle of the battlefield and just being kited by other enemies that can shoot them.
Right. So anything else out of Gen Con, or we kind of minding
Not
that?
really that I know of. The only other thing was they do have a pack coming for Rebels and Empire for the option to have generic commanders instead of taking characters. So just like a nobody, nameless kind of pilot, which is just to save on points. But I will say what's funny is the Rebel one looks like Santa Claus.
I'm just getting like images now of like Santa Claus like jumping out of a sleigh and
Yeah.
just all of a sudden like dual wielding blue lightsabers. No, it had to be green because Christmas colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, green.
Green and red though.
And then like he's fighting against Rudolph with a red lightsaber. Like,
Oh no.
come on, like
Out of his nose, right?
out of his nose.
Yeah.
That is not a mental image that I really wanted, but okay, there it is.
It
Like,
could have been a lot worse. Let's be honest.
that just has some phallic
Well, no,
undertones to it.
No, it's not going forward. It's like a biplane. It's like this way, and it spins.
Oh no,
That's
that
what
made it worse, Ben.
How?
Have you ever watched any of Lonely Island's videos on YouTube?
I've watched. No.
Okay, there's one that would explain
When I
that
think-
for you.
When I think plane propeller, I think Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Ah, yes.
Blood splatter.
Yeah, when are we gonna get an Indiana Jones miniature game?
Whenever they can I think a board game would be more likely than a miniatures game.
I just think having a miniatures game where well, no, that never mind. You can't do that because you would have people having to play as Nazis.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, never mind.
Well, I mean,
Putting the brakes on that.
I mean, that's the only way to get a good one because nobody wants to play as Russia from the bad Indiana Jones movie.
Nobody wants to play as Russia, period. But
No.
yeah, Russia was really hard to hold and risk. Obscure references, Ronnie. Like, wow,
Yeah.
you could tell like my brain is
Can
fried
you
from
even
work.
do like the slash and burn?
The slash and burn. Oh,
Yeah,
I
you
missed
know, like when France and Germany invaded Russia.
Oh,
and
that
they
would.
backed away.
I kind of want a risk game now that actually has some kind of rule for that.
Yeah, right.
Like, just go hold Russia. It's like, yeah, you lose a couple of territories, but you burn everything to the ground on the way out, so they don't provide any units.
Yeah, and then as the army has to retreat, they all die, and then you can just laugh.
Right.
The
Oh,
Russian gambit.
dude, I know we talked about not bringing this up on the podcast. So for those that are here, you know kind of get to see us kind of going off the road real quick.
This is our first double-digit episode. We should do like a
we got
special.
you. But dude, have you seen the Japanese poster for Venom?
No, I'm gonna look it up right now.
You need to see it. Like, for the first time since that movie's been announced, I'm actually excited for it.
Venom Japanese poster.
Yes. And for the audience out there, if you have not seen it, go look at it.
Whoa!
It is straight up like an anime poster, but it's live
Man,
action.
They make it look good.
Exactly. Like, I'm sitting here going, wow, that,
Just fire the American marketing team. Jeez, this'll do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, let's be honest. Usually the Japanese, they do advertise everything a lot better
They
than...
put art in advertising.
Right. So what are your thoughts on the Venom movie right now, based on what we've seen?
God. So, I'm going to take you back to the year Spider-Man 3 came out. That was the year when younger me saw this movie, walked out of the theater with Malcolm, and we both got home and said, we don't know what we just watched.
Yeah.
But then at that moment, I subconsciously made the promise that I was going to, at some point, get the apology for that movie in the form of a decent Venom movie. This isn't it.
Yeah.
This is not that apology.
It's... I don't know. It feels like they're making a new character out of Venom more than anything. Especially Eddie is like...
Well, they have to because nobody seems to answer the question of how do you get Venom without having Spider-Man.
Right. You really can't. Like...
Exactly.
That's been kind of the question from the very get-go. And it looks like they're kind of going like the Ultimate Spider-Man version with him being created in a lab.
Which I do like Ultimate Venom.
Right. But you just don't have with no Spider-Man. It feels weird in the first place.
But here's my problem with their interpretation of it. Ultimate Spider-Man Venom was actually like the creation of it had a sort of noble goal behind it to cure cancer. In the movie, it's just this guy, this jackoff, who's just like, I'm looking for the next step in human evolution and best intentions, blah, blah, blah. And it's just dumb and boring.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And like, you kind of lose some of that emotional attachment with the fact that, like, in Ultimate Comics, it was Peter's mom and dad had been working with the company own it. Right. And so it kind of built some emotions into the character. Yep. And like, now you're going to throw us Eddie Brock that is not Eddie Brock in any way. No. You're going to be like, you're going to love him.
No, I'm not. You can't make me.
And you know, and again, I'm the kind of person, I'm usually like, give something a chance. Like, I freaking, with the new Joker in Suicide Squad, I always like telling everybody, give it a chance before you judge it. And I'm still kind of that same way with this Venom movie, but the only thing that's made me excited for it has been the Japanese poster.
I mean, I've got to say, though, to their credit, this looks way better as Venom than Topher Grace in Spider-Man 3.
Why did they ever get Topher Grace to do that?
Not only that, they couldn't even get Venom to look right in that movie for what passed as Venom. This, at least, actually looks like Venom to some extent.
It does, and it brought up a question for me that I think we've really got to ask about any Venom movie. Is I still think it looks silly, but it brings up the question of, can you really make a live action Venom look good? And I don't know if it's possible.
That's tough.
Because right now, like,
oh, go ahead.
Is it like right now everybody's like fawning over it. There's a lot of people who are talking about how awesome it looks, but I think it's because people want so badly for this movie to be good that they're gonna think it looks awesome just because they want it to be good.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing: is like, you absolutely love the Japanese poster, as you should, but we also love it because it's a static image of Venom. It's Venom not in motion, and Venom not in motion looks terrifying.
Right.
But when you get him moving in the trailers. Like, of course, we haven't seen the movie, so we don't know how he's going to look outside of it. Like, it looks goofy in some parts.
It does.
And I just don't know if it's going to translate well when we get to the actual movie.
The sad part is like, the parts of it where it looks good is when it's just Eddie, and then, like, the symbiote comes out of him.
Yeah.
But when the mouth closes over Eddie, like, I thought that looked just as goofy as the Topher Grace Venom, honestly.
I don't know. I still rank this one slightly above it.
Right.
What I will say is, there's another good thing that at least I've heard from this movie is that it's not going to end up ruining Carnage.
I hope not. Oh, gosh.
No, I think they said Riot was the villain.
Oh, okay. No Carnage at all.
It's not ruining Carnage.
You know, I just thought of something.
Escapes.
Thought of something, and this sounds crazy. But I just actually read Carnage, like the introduction of Carnage. Based on the way that Cletus looked, Topher Grace wouldn't have made a terrible Cletus.
Probably not.
But Eddie is like a big buff guy.
Yeah. I think that's like the other thing that's kind of weird about this movie is that the last kind of exposure I had to Venom was playing the Ultimate Spider-Man video game, where that kind of continues that arc after the comics drop it. And I mean, Venom is just gigantic.
Right, he is.
Towers over Spider-Man. And like, is just in all descriptions bigger. And the Venom in this movie, like, he just looks like he's a bit buffer than the average guy.
Yeah, there is a, he's bigger than people, but there is a diminutive aspect to him compared to what Venom and Carnage and Toxin and all the symbiotes are in the comics. Like,
yeah,
I just don't feel like they're getting the character right yet. They're missing the point.
I'm actually amazed that they were smart enough to not put the Spider-Man logo on him, because this has nothing to do with Spider-Man. But I thought they would do it anyway because they would overlook it.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on that because, like, it's so iconic to Venom. Yes. But like you said, like, it wouldn't make sense if they did it. So I really don't know what to think about that.
I loved how they did it in that video game I mentioned, because, like, Venom started without it, and then whenever, like, he got the rest of the symbiote out of Peter's system, that's like when he became perfect Venom, and that's when he got the logo, and that was cool.
Right. And here's the thing, like, with Marvel now having the rights to make, the movies of characters that they own. What do you think that this takes place in the MCU? Do you think that we'll actually see this Venom and Spider-Man eventually meet?
So you bring that point up, and that was something that Robbie told me yesterday when I was at our post-tournament celebration. Was there was some conference where the lady in charge of this and like Kevin Feige were standing next to each other, and she goes, "Yes, this takes place in the universe," and Feige was just like,
"What?"
Like he doesn't want to associate it all with this. Like,
or was he telling her no because they had plans and they didn't want anything getting out?
Well, I think that's where we kind of read into it, like what we want to see. So since this is the meme of Sony can't make a good movie, like we just assume Feige's doing that because he doesn't want the MCU anywhere near this. But I have seen in IMDb that like the guy who plays Spider-Man in the MCU, he is listed in the cast for the movie.
Oh, okay. Well, that kind of makes it look like it could potentially be the MCU then.
Possibly, but again, I still bring up this question: how do you have Venom without Spider-Man?
Yeah, it's they should have brought him in to at least introduce the character.
Yes, I mean, at the very least, have a movie where we have an honest black suit Spider-Man.
Right, and I don't think you even have to spend that long with it. Like it could literally be, that Peter gets the symbiote and he's like, "Oh no!" Like the symbiote attaches to him. And you have the separation scene, and that's what makes Venom hate him because he wouldn't accept him.
Right. And I mean, the Ultimate version, Spider-Man had the suit for maybe a few pages, and then he was trying to get rid of it.
Right.
Like, he doesn't have to keep it for very long.
Right. And that you could literally bring Tom Holland in for like 2 days of filming to make this happen. Like, it does not have to be anything major. But, whatever made them make that decision, it is what it is.
I think it's just they're capitalizing on people like me who were burned by Spider-Man 3 and Topher Grace, that it's like, oh, people really want to see Venom and actually have it actually be looking like Venom. So they're hoping that I'm going to be blind enough that it's like, at long last, the destiny that I've been promised is fulfilled. A good Venom movie is on the horizon, and I'll just go and see it immediately.
Right. Well, how much of this do you think is still like just the leftover wreckage from the post Amazing Spider-Man 2 stuff where they were going to do like Sinister Six and a Venom movie? Like, do you think this is the original Venom movie they planned, but they're just separating it from Amazing Spider-Man and maybe linking it with the MCU?
I mean, it's possible. There's no reason for them not to do it. If they already had this idea lying around and they knew that they were going to have to eventually like partner up with Disney to save any sort of face, it's kind of like, why not do it? It's already a movie idea, fresh and ready to go. It's the best of both worlds,
right?
And it's cashing in on Venom,
right? And then it's like Disney actually doesn't have to spend the money on this movie.
Oh yeah. No, they don't have to worry about trying to make a CGI Venom look good.
And that's what's crazy about it is like in Disney's smart is like if the movie does well, all of a sudden Disney comes along and is like, yeah, this was our idea all along.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't do well, they could just go like, yeah, we didn't have anything to do with that.
Well, then they can go buddy. He's like, hey, let's talk about us bringing Venom into the MCU now, huh? Like if it does really well.
You know what I really want Disney to get the rights to?
Okay, what's that?
Green Lantern.
Oh.
And I know, I know the whole Warner Bros. Thing, but I mean this more as a joke because, as much as I harp on Marvel, they make decent movies.
They haven't made a Green Lantern yet.
So, but it's like, I want to see them actually make a acceptable Green Lantern movie.
I mean, just do something. Well, I'll tell you what this movie should have been, the Venom movie.
What's that?
It should have been the movie about the video game prototype.
Yeah.
Because everything about how the symbiote acts when Eddie's not full Venom, but the way it acts whenever he's like punching people and stuff, that's exactly how the virus acted in prototype.
Right.
Like, there's nothing that suggests to me that they couldn't have done it that way, but they simply just wanted to cash in on the Venom license.
Makes sense.
And I mean, Venom is more people know about that more than the prototype game anyway. They'd be like, prototype? What's that?
Oh, yeah. Well, it'd be a video game license trying to be made into a movie at that point. And we did an episode about that.
Yeah, they usually are never good, but I feel like this would have been like, video game license movies are never good when you set out to make them. But in the case of Venom, it's like, since you've gone out of your way, you almost accidentally made a good prototype movie.
Right.
It's almost like you should never aim for trying to make a good video game movie. Just aim like 10 meters to the left of it and you'll hit it.
Right. So I got one more topic I want to bring up real quick before our time runs out. Ben, today is August the 5th.
It sure is. This episode's dated already.
Do you know...
The Muffin Man.
Do you know what today, the time of recording, what it is? What today is? It is the 25th anniversary of Magic the Gathering.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
25 years ago today, Alpha went on sale for the first time ever.
Wow.
So, Magic...
You should have bought a cake.
Yeah, exactly. And again, for those that, aren't familiar with me and Ben, we both kind of cut our hobby gaming teeth on Magic.
Yeah.
And so it's been a huge influence. And as we talked about in the special episode that I released last week, the history of the Disgruntled Geeks, if you haven't went back and listened to it, it's actually been a big influence on us as podcasters.
Yep. Because
that's actually how we got our start, was with Magic.
That was our first show, was a Magic show.
Exactly.
Not like a rabbit at hat, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, Magic the Gathering.
But that would suck, an audio-only Magic show.
Well, you see the rabbit? Now it disappeared. Ooh.
But I never saw the rabbit.
Exactly. It's gone.
You could, if you ironically did it that way, it'd probably get a following.
Oh, okay. Well, tomorrow I'm going to release it.
Tomorrow I'll be doing card tricks.
Take a card, any card. But yeah, I thought that it'd be worth a mention on the show, considering how influential it's been on us.
It's a big milestone for Magic.
You know what they also did this weekend?
What's that?
There was a Pro Tour.
Oh yeah, there was. Well, They timed that perfectly, didn't they?
Exactly, and it was actually a kind of the first in Pro Tour history with what they did at this Pro Tour, because it was actually a team Pro Tour. And so you would have 3 players playing against the other 3 players. Now, not in one big game, but in 3 separate games. And one player would be playing Standard, one person would be playing Modern, and one person would be playing Legacy.
Right.
And so it was actually really cool. Instead of a top 8, they had top 4, because that's a lot of games to be trying to play.
Did they have the players, did all the teams sit across from each other and then they each play their respective formats?
Yes. And you could actually... The team members could actually help each other out. If say the Legacy player got into a situation where he didn't know what to do, he could go to the Standard player and be like, "Hey, what would you do here?"
Right.
And
that's
so
pretty cool.
It was absolutely a phenomenal event. It is probably one of the more well received Pro Tours since they've started doing live coverage.
Yeah.
And one of the things is as you know, Ben, some of you may not. Every Pro Tour is themed after the most recent set release. Mm-hmm. That was actually one of the big things, is since it was themed on the entire history of Magic, the stream overall just had a higher quality because it wasn't just the same repeated graphics from the most recent set over and over.
Right.
There was enough art that they could cycle through, and during any of the breaks, you had multiple kind of those 10-second set pieces for a minute. It was really, really high production value.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe Wizards of the Coast actually learned something from it.
Yeah, probably so.
Probably not. It's Wizards of the Coast we're talking about. They're like,
True.
Well, we got to keep the reserve list because we don't want people to think their cards don't have value. Oh.
We want their cardboard to pay for their kids' college and whatever.
Because $85,000 pieces of cardboard makes sense.
No, is a card really up to $85,000?
Black Lotus, Alpha Black Lotus, $85,000. Not to mention Underground Sea, which is
what's that going for?
$800.
$800. $800 for one land.
Yes, one land in Legacy.
And I wanted to build that blue-black Tezzeret Legacy.
Yeah, not anymore.
Well, I couldn't even build it when I was $200 a piece.
Just go buy a car now. What are you going to build a Magic deck? Buy a car instead. That's something that's actually usable.
Well, I tell you what, if you talk about it in the context of people who have no idea what the hell Magic is, you get people like, I bought an Underground Sea. Ooh, he owns an ocean underground?
Right. It's that's out of context. That'd be hilarious. This kind of just as a side note before we leave out. They actually added, if for those of you that have been with the show for a while, you probably heard me talk about the snap that happened on Reddit.
Yes.
Where a subreddit banned half of their users in a snap like the Thanos snap. It was our Thanos did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
They added a badge on Reddit
Really?
for people who participated in that event.
Aw.
I was really
Like
excited.
a flare or something?
Well, you know how like they have your year, like your 4-year badge.
Yeah, like your little Boy Scout badge in your profile thing.
Exactly. So,
Okay, yeah.
I got my badge today, and I was like, "Oh, that's exciting."
Well, I would say wear it with pride, but it doesn't actually exist in this world. So.
Well, yeah, can't really. I could print it out and then tape it to myself.
Wow.
I could just go everywhere with my Thanos badge.
You just have to everyone just be staring at you, just be like, "That guy's so cool."
Yeah, exactly. Like, I participated in a Reddit event. Aren't you jealous?
Very.
Well, Ben, we have reached that dreaded time every week.
Yeah, where we have to stop talking and go our separate ways.
Actually go do real life things instead of being here with all the awesome listeners.
Yeah, the dream of people wanting to listen to us is over this week.
Right. I do want to say we've had a record week on the podcast this week as
we
far
are
as
flabbergasted
downloads.
by that.
Yeah, it's that's the thing is like whoever you are, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, really. That's not all we can say.
Yeah, we do this for you because we feel like all podcasts almost sound the same, and that's the whole point of this podcast is we wanted to be the voice that was willing to say when something was bad. We didn't want to just glad hand everything. So
try not to. I mean, we still like some things, but
yeah,
we're not going to be afraid to be like, this is garbage, and the thing I like is doing garbage things.
Right, and we do that for you. So we definitely appreciate your support back and listening. And at any point, if you disagree with any of our opinions, we welcome you to go to Facebook or to email us. You can find our email on the website or on Facebook. Facebook's just the Disgruntled Geeks. And let us know. Let us know about your opinion, and we will feature it on the show as long as it's 140 characters or less. Now, if you have an opinion that's more characters than that, feel free to send it.
Sure, but just don't expect us to spend all episode reading it.
Yeah, we're just not going to read it on the show. I do have once again a email from Wit actually this week.
What if we actually got a bunch of those and like one stream just did like dramatic readings of them?
We should do that. If we get enough, we'll do that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and read Wit's email that he sent us this week. He said, and this is in reference to we were talking about comic books last week. That's all we talked about. And we talked about the Skrulls not being in the movies.
Okay.
Or being in the MCU now and all that. So he said, hasn't the only reference to the Skrulls in the MCU so far been a Kree or been a Skrull in one of the Collector's pods in Guardians? Aren't you talking about the Kree? And as in reference to, I was talking about the Skrulls being associated with Captain Marvel. So the answer to that real quick is, before I read the rest of it, is that yes, Captain Marvel is associated with the Kree, but the primary antagonist to Captain Marvel is the Skrulls.
Yeah.
So as far as I know, I'm pretty sure the movie is going to have the Skrulls be her primary antagonist. So he said, I'm thinking they need to save Galactus for a later date because everything's not recovering from Thanos yet. Besides, Galactus as an Earth-destroying event would be a letdown after Thanos destroying half the people in the universe. Spoilers for those that haven't seen Infinity War. I have no problem with any creator changing their characters around as long as it makes sense and it's a good story. I vaguely know how Miles Morales, Ironheart, Jane Thor, or Asian Hulk have come to be. If it's a good story, it's cool. If it's a diversity hire to check off a box, it's a bad idea and the sales will reflect it. I'm just going to leave that alone. Let it stand for what it is, because I don't want to touch that one. But you have a good point with it. You absolutely have a good point.
Yeah.
So, by the way, guys, also before we get out, if you, we would really love for you to go and leave a review on your podcast hosting that you listen to us through, whether that's Stitcher, iTunes, however you listen to us, go out and give us a review. And I'm not going to be like most podcast hosts and say, go give us a 5-star review because of how awesome we are.
Nah, this week we're looking for
2.5
stars.
2.5.
Okay, 2.5, 3.
Yeah. You know, we want to know how you really feel. If you don't like the show, put a 1 star. But tell us why, so that we can improve and make it better for you, okay?
Yep.
And then don't forget also, every day we've got the Disgruntled Daily coming out. That way you can just listen to me kind of rant and ramble about a various assortment of subjects. Maybe we'll get
been the thing missing from my life.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we'll get bid to do a special episode.
Oh dear.
I'll just make it the episode about The Last Jedi.
I should do that whenever I'm at work.
But it'll be like 3 hours long. So.
Well, it's either that or I think the other thing that would get that kind of mileage is what's been wrong with Bray Wyatt.
Oh, Lord, yes. And last thing before we go is we do have a Patreon. It is, what do you call it, man?
I call it the best toilet that you could flush away your worst dollar in.
Most definitely. Hey, guys, do not feel obligated to give us anything, but if you feel that you should, $1 goes a long way towards helping with podcast hosting. I mean, I try to be as transparent as possible. We're paying $13 for podcast hosting a week. If we get 13 people to donate $1, then bam, podcast hosting, we don't got to worry about it. But if you don't, guess what? We're going to keep paying it. So don't feel obligated.
Yeah, $13 is not exactly wallet breaking. So.
Exactly. But that just tells you how much that $1 would go towards it.
Yeah, help out.
So if you ever feel like you want to do that, hey, you're welcome to. Just search for the Disgruntled Geeks on Patreon. Ben, you got anything else before we get out of here?
Not particularly. I just promised to do better at the next door championship.
Awesome. We look forward to it then, man. Hey, guys, don't forget, keep your eyes out always for the Disgruntled Geeks. Oh, wait, I did forget one thing.
Okay, what's that?
I've got to bring up our sponsor.
Oh, yeah.
Man, Anthony, I am so sorry, my man.
Wow.
But I know it feels like it's like false finishes. We're like the Return of the King right now, where it's like you just keep thinking it's over, and like we just keep bringing on a new ending. But yes, guys, we are sponsored by Tupelo Sports Cards. It is your place for hobby, board, miniature, trading card, any kind of games you can think of, as well as sports memorabilia. So if you're ever in North Mississippi, stop by, give Anthony a holler. Just don't tell him that we sent you.
It's actually where we had our store championship too.
There you go. So guys, definitely we appreciate you this week. But until next week, stay disgruntled.
See yous.